Welcome everyone. Today we are doing session 4 of Microsoft Dynamics 365 Platform Convergence Series. And the topic for today's session is dual write and virtual entities. Our presenters are Faisal Farid and Amna Khan. Just a quick disclaimer before we move forward that the views expressed in these sessions are from the speakers based on their experience and learning from the projects. It does not represent the views of their employers or Microsoft. For these workshops, we are using trial environments, and these sessions are being recorded and will be available on the YouTube channels of the user groups which are running these events. So as a part of recording, your name or email address may appear. So if you do not wish to be part of a recorded session, then now is a good time to disconnect. These sessions are brought to you by 3 user groups of Dynamics 365 space who are aiming to bring all the Dynamics 365 professionals globally together so that people can learn and share from each other. And that's the pure objective of these user groups. So during the session, I'll share the links and you can join and follow us on various handles like Twitter and LinkedIn. As a part of this series of sessions, we are conducting 5 sessions. We have already conducted 3 sessions, which were on introduction to Dataverse, introduction to platform convergence, and the business events in finance and operations and Dataverse. Today's session is focused on dual write and virtual entities. So before we dive into dual write and virtual entity, and I hand it over to Amna and Faisal, I would like to take 5 minutes just to touch base on what we have done so far and what our journey has been. So in session 1, we started with what is platform convergence and what is the significance of Dataverse in Power Platform and Dynamics 365 ecosystem. Then Preeti from Valrada showed us how we can create different data types, tables, a model-driven app in Dataverse. And that was a baseline learning for everyone to understand what is Dataverse, what are model-driven apps, how we can create new tables and relations and lookup fields and calculative fields. So thank you, Preeti, for the session and the amazing demonstration of your skills there. Then we had session 2 where we talked about platform convergence and we talked about unifications which are happening through user interface where we can embed Power Apps, model-driven apps, and finance and operations into different Dynamics 365 applications. Tim Shaw from Microsoft also talked about the upcoming roadmap features and what a future solution architect looks like. And Faisal also shared his experience by working on these frameworks and tools. Then session 3 happened last week where Cameron Robinson from Valrada joined us and I was in that session and we talked about business events. We understood what are the concepts and what are the business scenarios where we can use business events. We also did a walkthrough of the setups and configurations in finance and operations. And then Cameron talked about what's coming ahead in Dataverse and how Dataverse will become a centralized placeholder for all the business events happening in the Dynamics 365 applications. With that, we ended the session 3. So today we will be talking about dual write and virtual entities, which enable seamless data integration between finance and operations and Dataverse. So we will see what the concepts are. We will see some case studies, key takeaways and learnings from Amna and Faisal. And I'm super happy to host this show and introduce you to Faisal Farid and Amna Khan, whom I really respect for their knowledge, and not only for their knowledge, but also because they are such a good people, very good at heart, beautiful souls. And I'm blessed to have them in my career and life as very good friends. So Faisal and Amna, over to you guys. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Pratik. And really pleased to have so kind words from your side. I know we both have been working together almost 6 or 7 years now. So it's been a pleasure for me to working with along with you, and also it's been pleasure to have Amna to share stage with me first time and providing this opportunity to talk together. And I'm really thankful to you. I'll quickly share my screen over here. And today's speakers, as Rachit introduced us to us. Uh, Actually, I'm quite humble right now. I don't know how to start sessions. Rachit, you have explained, you have given us so much respect. Thank you so much.
You
Okay, so
deserve it,
next,
mate. Yeah. Mhm.
thank you. Thank you always. Really appreciate your cooperation support, mate. Uh, So let's jump into the topic for today. Like my name is Faisal Farid, and along with me, the talented Amna Khan we have from Pakistan. So we both present represents multiple user groups and communities across the world, and we are running a Pakistan user group together back in Pakistan. Uh, Amna Khan is a Dynamics 365 and Power Platform consultant, really talented, always ready to help support communities. And myself is solution architect working at Barhead, and Amna Khan is working at Very Park in Pakistan. So with this one, what we are going to talk about today, as Rachit did mention about dual right. And since last 3 to 4 weeks, we have learned a lot how Microsoft is actually taking finance and operations back into the Power Platform, and how these two different applications from the database level they are converging to each other, and how this convergence is happening. What is going to happen in future? It, we did talk about in last session when Cameron and Rachit explained us about business event. There are so many questions going around in the people's mind. What's going to happen with the finance and operations consultant? Are they going to lose their job, or X plus plus is going to end? No, that's not reality. What's going to happen, and what would be the future now? We got multiple platforms here. Everyone has its own pros and cons here. What we did talk about, and this is a source from one of the great series from Microsoft Rachel Profit. She ran that series, uh, how the convergence is going to happen at Microsoft. So we talked about a dual write. The dual write is actually a near real time. Virtual entities also perform a real time CRUD operations. Data integrators, we have a scheduled batch jobs there. Logic app, we have a near real time. So I'm not going to explain to every bit of the all the aspects of the integrations here. The whole idea is if you really want to explain all the possibilities of integration, this is the best slide. We took it from Microsoft and just print it, um, maybe copy it somewhere. You will have a better idea about what are the possibilities here. So all the possibilities here in the vertical form, you have dual write, you have virtual entities, you have data integrator, you have logic app. But who knows, in the upcoming future, Microsoft will add more onto the in the verticals columns here, which could be like one of the my favorite and hot topics nowadays is business events, data events, and uh, although Azure Data Lake is not the integration framework, but this is actually one of my favorite topics nowadays to explore what is going on with the Azure Data Lake there, how we are actually getting data, how I'm going to get data out of financial operations, putting it to the Azure, how Amna is going to get data out of customer engagement or database, putting it to the database into the Azure, and then we both, if we can get our data from both apps out of Azure portal, Azure storage, then we can hand over that to Rachit, and we can say, okay, Rachit, you have your data into Azure, do whatever you want to. You have so many tools available. So run through all the analysis, analytics there, combining the data there, do whatever you want to. So that's the whole idea behind this one. We talked about all the business areas, dual right, data integrated. Here, now what we are going to present today is dual right and virtual entities walkthrough. Before I'll hand over to Amna, we are not going to provide you a demo, which is the best way here. Everything will be working. No, we have prepared a demo in that way. We have intentionally broken the things there so that we can show you, we can see whenever you will start, what hurdles you are going to face, what issues you are going to face. If you are going to miss this step, what would happen? So that's the whole idea of this demonstration. So with this one, I'll request Amna to start sharing your screen, or maybe I can, or no, sorry, you can share your screen and present whatever you have for today for us about dual right.
Hello everyone, good day. Thank you so much Faisal and Rachit for the best introduction in my life, because I am so much honored to have such kind words from our respected industry leads right now. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for providing such a brief and a concise introduction for what Microsoft D365 and Microsoft Conversion is all about. So now I am going to share my screen and starting with dual right. So here I am sharing my screen. Do let me know when it's visible.
Yes, I can see
Yes,
your
I
screen,
can
Amna.
see. Okay, so let me go back to the slide. Yeah. So today we are going to see why this dual write is to be used and what is the purpose. So firstly, we have a common term for a longer time that Microsoft is offering no code, low code uh, substitutes to work for any citizen developer to work seamlessly. So here we have a solution for integration between D365 Suite app, that is Power Apps and Finance and Operations, normally integrated with internal database that is called Dataverse, formerly called as CDS. So basically, it is a very friendly and easy to configurable setup. That's why it is a first choice to go for a dual write when we are integrating and when we want to have a bi-directional integration that should be seamless and doesn't require much technicality. So it's a good choice to go for dual write. So here is a big picture analysis for dual write, what it offers, how it is taking data from CDS Dataverse, and how it is putting all the data over finance and operations app. So we will look forward how do we set up, how do we perform table mappings, and how do we can sync data between the two environments. So here are the core purposes of dual write. Near real time it means because it depends on a transactional base history. So it is can be catered as a near real time, not 100% because it is transactional based. Second point is bi-directional. It means we can also dump data from customer engagement to FNO and vice versa. Also, we can map master data as well as its style record or its reference records. So here we have the deeper insights of how we can take a look for the insights of dual right. So as I already explained, we can provide mapping between parent data and child data, that is master data and also the reference data. Both can map with FNO tables. This is a bidirectional data flows, extendable, and most important, this is something that we are having out of the box, which means we doesn't need much more working or some extra efforts to make it work. And there are two kind of aspects that a dual write offers. One is based on infrastructure and one is based on application. So the first category, that it is a bidirectional, or this works both on offline and online modes, which means it has a asynchronization and synchronization modes enabled, and it is an out of the box feature, and also support custom entities that we have extensions in customer engagement. And from application point of view, it can easily integrate customer master data, also can explain organizational hierarchy, as well as a single source of management for all users. So these are the key points that we should opt for dual write. Here we can see on a graphical representation for how it works, how data dual write works with data mapping, how does it takes data first into CDS or Dataverse, how this data is dumped typically on customers' data lake, and how it is transactionally moved towards customer engagement. So here you can see any application that we have in finance and operations. Normally, the commonly used are retail, talent, or whatsoever. And in customer engagement, we have sales, customer service, marketing, field service, and project service automation, so on. So all these applications and all the entities that standard entities that we have can easily map with finance and operations tables. Okay, here are the aspects that we discuss. We can also observe it on a picture that we have two aspects of dual write, application based and infrastructure based. Here, I think Faisal can add a few more points. Faisal, can you please provide some more feedback over this?
Yes, thank you, Amna, for sure. I'll put you on mute. There is the echo. Okay. So dual write is actually not, we will not consider this just the integration layer between FNO and CE. Dual write also have two aspects on it. Whenever you create a record, you to perform any actions in either side of the application, either FNO or Dataverse. I'll keep saying Dataverse because I will not say customer engagement, because dual write is the integration between databases, not the application itself. So it's the data integration between Dataverse and FNO database. So FNO database, we have either SQL or Azure SQL. Now coming back to these application and infrastructure, the first thing is the underline the infrastructure. Whenever you install, deploy dual write solution, you get all the infrastructure there, which could be all the functionalities out of the box. You can pause, you can play individual dual write mapping, which Amna will demonstrate a little bit after this slide. We have alerts, we have custom entities if you want to add, if you want to deploy from one environment to another environment, we have an ALM solutions availability there. This is completely an infrastructure which Microsoft provides. And when it comes to the application, so from application point of view, think about customer and accounts. This is the two business processes. You want to sync between the applications. You have customer groups, you have currencies. You can add or remove out of the box business processes. You can add your custom business processes there. This could be you have your sales processes in finance and operations. You want to show all your invoices back into finance in customer engagement. Regardless, for now, we will not think about is the dual write the better solution for copying the sales order from FNO2 to CE, or copying the invoices from FO to CE. We will talk about what are the business processes you can actually run between the applications. So that actually covers the application aspect of the dual write on top of the infrastructure. So over to you, Amna. Perfect. So from here, what I'll do, I'll just start sharing my screen here. And this is how we have just prepared. And that's the beauty of it. We are not into the same location. We just have to shuffle between the screens. Now, I'm going to talk about dual write. Now, what is the next availability we have in out of the box Microsoft is providing is the virtual entities. So you can see here onto the right hand side of the screen, we have the dual write data integration and the operations connector. We put this screen, slide is actually a little bit older where we copied it from Microsoft. Operations connector, which is a finance and operational connector, this is getting obsolete. So Microsoft doesn't suggest you to use any connector now, rather go with the dual write data integrator here. We have a scheduled session next week where Priyanka is going to talk about more in details about the data integrator. So let's stay on to the topic for the dual write here. We have a dual write. I'm going to describe this to you. On to the left-hand side, and in an oval shape, you can see Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and AI Builder. Complete Power Platform suite you are sitting over there. And the underlying database is the Dataverse. Again, as I did mention, this is a very old slide where Microsoft used to call Dataverse as a CDS. So that's why it's showing you a CDS here. But remember, this is a Dataverse now. So the underlying database is a Dataverse here. Now, on to your right-hand side of this oval shape, you see a dual write. And finance and operations, by the way, the icon or a logo for finance and operations has already been changed. And so everyone knows. But that is the old icon or a logo sitting over here. So finance and operations is actually outside of finance or Power Platform. What happens there with the virtual entities? So you see, finance and operations is actually moved within the Dataverse here. So now what would happen with the virtual entities? Your data will remain into finance and operations. And you will have an extra store where you can actually configure all the finance and operations data, not all, sorry, only those data entities which are marked as public or which are actually you can export, you can consume out of finance and operations in a way. So you can export data from finance and operations rightly into, or you can query data. Sorry, I would not say export. You can query data within Dataverse from finance and operations. So data will remain into finance and operations. You can query data. You can work on it. You can perform all CRUD operations there. This is the concept of the virtual entities here. Now, virtual entities for finance and operations and supply chain management apps and sorry, it's a very long name here. It's the finance and operations and supply chain management because there is a reason to put these two. These are sold as a different licenses here. So, but underline the database is same. So finance and operations, as I explained, finance and operation is now available as a virtual data source in common data services, which is again Dataverse. You can perform all CRUD operations there. All the data entities which are marked as public data entities, you can see all those data entities in Dataverse. I'll demonstrate a little bit about this one. You can allow this actually allowing synchronization execution of finance and operations business logic. So if you are performing any processes, any business logic in finance and operations, those business logic will remain into finance and operations, and you can actually retrieve the data, you can query that data and utilize that data within Dataverse there. This doesn't store, copy, replicate data into Dataverse. This is just a virtual copy. Dual write is still there. It doesn't mean Microsoft is actually, they started with a CDS 1. So there is a bit of a history. So whenever people ask me why we will go with the data entities, dual write. Microsoft started with the data integrator first. Data integrator is still very powerful, very robust, but it's not real time because data integrator works in batch processes, in a scheduled processes. We will see next week more in detail. but that was a data integrator. Then Microsoft introduced CDS1. What was CDS1 there? CDS1, we have a finance and operations database. We have Dataverse there. That, by the way, that used to call CDS database at that point. We have finance and operations database. We have CDS database here, and in between, they added another database that's called CDS1 database. So everything copied from FNO to CDS1, from CDS actual Dataverse database to CDS1, and then you have all the applications there. And that was an overhead. Now Microsoft removed that extra database from there and said, okay, now this is actually a one-to-one connection. That's called dual write. So you can actually create all the synchronization between two different apps. Dual write. So not to forget here, dual write only works between finance and operations and Dataverse. If you want to talk different applications, maybe outside of finance and outside of Microsoft Stack, dual write is not the option. You have to think intelligently there. Maybe you want to use a logic app, which is another topic for next week. So that was a little bit about virtual entities. Once we have the virtual entities configured, what's going to happen? There are two aspects. Let's say I'm a finance and operations person. Amna is a Dataverse user. What I'm going to get? I'm going to have my data. I can utilize that data into Power Platform, and I can create a Power Apps on it. I can have all the charts and enhanced UI. I can provide my data to Amna. She can create all the Power Apps on it. On the other side, what she is going to get? She is going to get finance operations, my data. She can utilize my inventory data. She can play onto my financial data, and using her intelligent brain there, she can create powerful apps on top of that one. She can create portals on that one. She can create some Power BI reports on that one, but just providing my data. In return, what I'm going to get, actually, whatever the apps Amna is going to create, and I can embed those apps which Rachit showed us in session number 2, where I provided my data to Amna. Amna created apps on top of that one. I can reutilize those apps within finance and operations by embedding, excuse me, by embedding those ones. This is one of the potential scenarios for virtual entities. No, there is no extra effort involved there. Few steps which are very well written into Microsoft Docs article, and you are able to configure all the virtual entities. With this one, I'll hand over to Amna now. So over to you, Amna. You are on mute.
Okay, thank you so much, Faisal. I was actually deep diving with your explanation. It was so interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen to let me know when it's visible.
We can see the demo slide, Amna.
Sorry, this is my slide.
Yeah, I have shared my screen. Do let me
Yep.
know when it's visible.
Yep.
Okay, so as Faisal explained just a moment ago, we are up here to show what challenges and what errors we can face while we are setting up a dual write and while we are trying to sync data between the two environments, that is customer engagement and financial operations. So here we have already set up a dual write, like we have configured it, but now we are going to sync customers from finance and operations towards CRM, that is customer engagement. So first of all, do explain me the thing. We have accounts in customer engagement that we are going to refer as customers V3 in finance and operations. Okay, here let me show this. We have this tab. Just- Okay, so first of all, we have this admin portal where we can set up all the applications, all the solutions. So here we have already set up core solution for dual write and of course this application too. So these are the basic steps that we need to configure first. So we have already done this. So now I am moving forward. Here we have, okay, I am here in FNO and here I am going to workspaces. From there, I am going towards data management, where I want to show you the map, how we can configure this dual write and how we can set up table mappings and we can initialize data sync between the two applications. It's loading right the moment. Okay, so from there I can take up an entity name. Here you can see all the entities listed that can be easily mapped with Dataverse. Here you can see CDS customer V2, contact V2 that are contacts in customer engagement. And what we are trying to do, we are trying to sync customers V3 that is account in customer engagement. So here we can see the thing we need to do is we have to start with initialize sync. There comes error and there are some prerequisites that needs to be done before we start integration between the two apps. For these prerequisites, Faisal can put up his input.
Yes, sure. So if you please go back to one screen and click onto the dual rights there. So that was a point which we mentioned at the initial of the discussion, like why did we created a demonstration so to show you why it's working and why it's not working. So if you click onto the left hand side, a circle next to the customer V3, just select a record, and here you will have an option. Wait, can you please stop the recording? Sorry, stop the dual write mapping here. So what we are trying to show over here, whenever you have any data entity, but not a data entity, that's a old abbreviation. Now it's called table map here. So if you please again select the customer V3 account and run it please onto your top left. So just stay here and toggle the show related table maps on the top. So this is the dependencies. If you try to run the customer V3 data entities and you haven't got sync customer groups there, you haven't synced terms of payments, you haven't synced uh, currencies there, then it will fail. And this is actually derived from the table relationship within financial operations. It's the same scenario. if we go with the manual process of creating a customer account in finance and operations, and you do not have a customer group setup, you do not have a proper currency setup, you do not have a proper terms of payment setup there, it will fail. It will give you all the error messages. Because why those error messages only creating manual record in finance and operations? These are coming from your actual table level relationship. The dual right also works and respect all those table level relationships. So these are coming as dependencies to customers. So now if you cancel on it, please, and just run it, please, or maybe just go to the initial thing details, please. Cancel on it, please. Sorry. Go to the initial thing details here, please. Nothing here. Sorry. If you go back to the customer groups, so this is where we actually explicitly left custom couple of records there. Now the idea is, now if you are trying to run a customer 3C data entity and you are not sure what the error messages are coming, you can actually find out all those error messages right into the initial thing details. Now, this only works with the initial thing. I'll just take a one more moment here just to explain a little bit more about what is initial thing. Initial thing, if you have a master data into FNO, you want to copy this data back into the Dataverse environment. This is where it actually works for a data initial thing. You are copying the whole bulk of data from FNO to Dataverse or vice versa. It completely depends on to your direction, whatever you choose there. On the opposite side, you do not want to run the initial thing. You just want to start that process. Whenever you run the process, do not select the initial thing. This is your live data. Now, if the customer's V3 data entity or table map is running, what would happen? You create any customer account in financial operations, it will copy the data from FNO to Dataverse. And Amna can talk a little bit more about the table mappings here. If you please go to the table mappings. Yeah. So in the table mappings, you can see different icons here. A map type is equals, or you have one direction, you have a bi-direction here. So
Yeah.
yeah, you can talk more about this one.
Okay, so here we have, this is basically our studied entity. And since we are working on trial environment, so we are taking up this with the studied entity, but we can also perform the same action with our custom entities as well. Faisal, do add your feedback at any point you find I am, missing anything that should be explained. So here we have, as Faisal just explained by this notation, we can find out this is a bi-directional, like we have this account number in customer engagement, and that is we have customer account in finance and operations. So basically this is showing kind of mapping that will be take place.
Yes.
Here we can also edit it. We can also, like, if I am adding a custom field in my customer engagement on account entity, so I can also map it here with some custom field that I have created here in finance and operations. Similarly,
Yes. So one just quick point here, Amna. So as you can see here, the mapping is at the field level, not actually the header level. This is actually a more powerful feature here. So you can see if you want to copy customer account from only FNA to CE, you can change, okay, this is a one direction. But let's say onto the other side, you just want to say my address will only come from CE to FNO. You can change the direction to be at the field level. And on the field level, if you please click onto any of the icons for the table mappings here, click on any of the icons here, please. No, sorry, cancel on it. click onto the table mappings icon. Map type here. This is where you actually define your transformation. Let's say in finance and operations, we have a concept of base enums, but we do not have similar concepts in customer engagement or in data words, I would say. We have uh, options there, optional values. But in financial operations, we call it a base enum. We have true false in financial operations. They have we have yes no field. They have a true false. When I say they, actually I'm referring to Amna because Amna is from a customer engagement background, more of the customer engagement background. So I'm referring to Amna saying, okay, this is Amna's data. She actually referred this as a true false, or I'm actually referring this one as a uh, yes or no fields. So we actually have to map those mappings, proper transformation here. So you can actually define all transformations right into the each individual mapping field, table map field here. So, and if we go back to the cancel on it please, and the last thing which I just wanted to show here, then we can go to the next slide. Please cancel on this one. And onto the top, you can see the filters here. So if you click on the filter funnel next to the customer's B3 funnel, so that's actually the way where you can actually define all your filters here. For financial operations, guys, if you are a developer, you know the syntax, how you can put the same syntax within the query. But the same syntax you also use whenever you run any batch process or inquiries where you have a select option, you put a filter on it, you define a filter. Okay, I want to have my customer party type only equals to organization. So it's the same syntax. If you please cancel on it and click the again funnel onto your right hand side, which is next to the account here, this is the a query which uses the syntax from the CE side. So it's very powerful, I would say. If you are new in implementation of the dual right, you do not know how the syntax works into the financial operations, you don't know how the syntax works into the CE, there is a complete doc article Microsoft has explained what are the syntaxes you should be using there. And eventually you will learn. This is how actually I learned a lot about uh, where how the synthesis of the queries work into the CE, how it works into the finance innovations. Now, for there, we just want to keep it as it is for now, up to this level. Now, if you want to add more values, more information over here, Amna, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Faisal. Here we can also find out the details like after having initial sync of details, whatever errors we get, we can sort this out from here. As just Faisal explained earlier, here we have also this queued records. For now, we don't have any because we haven't initialized the sync up due to the prerequisites that needs to be done. Though we can start it now, but it will take some time to configure. Also, we can find out catch-up errors like what we are facing while we are trying to have some cute records or initial thing details and so on. Here is also a one-liner explanation is provided here. You can see if someone who is not aware about that entities, the table names and the table information much, that is going to be synced between FNO and data words. So you can find out here. You can see that FNO, it is mentioned customers V3 is highlighting the relation with CDS.accounts. So it is also a quicker way to find out the entities mapping, like which entity is representing what from both the environments. So this is it.
Perfect. Thank you, Amna. So I just want to add one thing here. Dual right is not the solution for all the problems. So
Yeah.
If you are thinking like your life is going to be very easy after implementing the dual right, so don't set this expectation. To sometimes your life is going to get a little bit harder, whatever you expected. So dual right is not the solution for all the issues. Microsoft is still working very hard or in a better or best track towards making it a more user friendly. There are so many other scenarios. Let's talk about the transactional data, how it's going to work, what would happen if I have an inventory, I have my sales invoices, I have my sales orders, how I'm going to use all this transactional data for dual right. There are other options available. You have your virtual entities available. Idea is, do you really want to use or copy your sales invoices data back into customer engagement or data work? Like most of the time, I would say no, we don't want. I just want to utilize this data. Then you don't need to align for that one. You better go with the virtual entities there. Now we did learn new things about the business events. We learn about the data events. Something new record gets created into finance and operations using the business event framework. Now, a trigger would happen, and it happens through plugins in Dataverse. So there are so many other options available coming now. All the business events, this data events, this thing, it's not generally available, but these are not going to last for so long. These are going to be available, I hope so, very soon. With this one, we would like to talk about a couple of case studies. So over to you, Amna.
Thank you. Okay, so as Faisal just explained that picking up dual right is not a good choice every time is because it has some kind of feature limitations. It will be a preferable thing if I'm not going to call it as a limitation, because Microsoft already has mentioned it, that these are the points, or these are the key points that should be catered once you are trying to opt for dual right. Thing is, there's a scenario when this is just kind of a case study that we have implemented for one of our clients who actually are now implementing this dual right. So they have a kind of business of online charity organization. So they have their donors, their sponsorships, and so many kind of charity collections all over the world, and they want to keep the record for their donors and for their sponsorships in such a way that they want to keep their actual database updated, and they also want to have interaction with their customers at this point in the scenario are their donors and sponsors who are providing support to them by any means. This can be a financial support, or this can be any sort of marketing support, and so on, in a generic scenario that normally we can see in some kind of charity organization or some kind of NGOs. So so what they did actually, um, they have to keep their data between finance and operations that were actually responsible for keeping all their financials track, financial analysis, and to interact with their customers. They were using actually customer engagement. So they want kind of integration that just take minimal of efforts, minimal of minimal costing, in the sense they don't want to have support from the vendor on minor changes or minor kind of updates. So they want something that should become as a out of the box and should be easily configurable by a citizen developer. So that was an ideal solution, an ideal proposal for them to go for dual right. And the most important aspect that this client have was they were using a single same tenant. That is the most important and core point that we should observe here. Like if we have environments of FNO and customer engagement that are distributed or that are not on a same tenant, then dual write is not the right choice. So that is why we are having other options for data integrators, logic apps, where it comes in when we are working on different tenants and when we are working on a distributed environments. So dual write is a good choice when we have single same tenant, when we don't have much of the data, like there is limitation of data, we are not in the condition that we need to take backups frequently, and we need to have full real time integration between both the environments. Like we can have our breakdowns, we can have delays, we can bear delays, we can have delays time for server down or any kind of downtime. So in this scenario, it was a good choice to go for this dual write. But if you have such complications that you are working on different tenants, or you have bulk data, or I should say you have big data, and you want to do migration between the applications, and you cannot bear delays, any sort of delays due to any transaction delay or due to any link down or due to any mode switch. So this is not a good choice to go for this dual write. Okay, here we have another case study where another multinational organization who were actually using a cloud-based solution. They were having a parent tenant that was a single tenant. Inside that, they have multiple organization, but again, they were interlinked in hierarchical way with their parent organization. So it is considered as a same tenant. So in this kind of scenario where you have organization structure based on parent and child hierarchy, you can also go and you can also opt dual right. They have kind of business where they wants to keep their records, where they want to manage their total suite activities such as asset management, project management, customer management, and so on. So it was a good choice to go for the complete suite of D365, and for integration purpose it is a good choice to go for dual write. Okay, regarding this case study, Faisal, would you like to add something?
No, Amna, that's all. Thanks for explaining all these case studies. So, see, these case studies, like some of the case studies, we have just pretend few of the case studies just to explain and just to give a little bit of a flavor when we go for any examination, for any certification, we got different case studies and we have to answer out of those case studies. So we just try to pretend or create some sort of a simulator of case studies there. So one of the case study is actually the real time implementation, and one of the case studies actually we have created on our own. But let's say if you have your own case studies, we are not able to answer those questions right now, uh, we can definitely take those case studies. We can discuss those case studies using the dual write offline mode. So we can take it offline. So yes, dual write does support offline mode. Uh, Now, with this one, what we would like to take before we provide you what are the key takeaways here, then I'll just try to explain more about the virtual entities now. So I'll take us to see here, Amna, and then we'll demonstrate what are the virtual entities. So that's my finance and operations environment. I'm just logging to my customer engagement environment here. I have created a one, by the way, I just created a customer and account is going between the applications. It's a completely document available on Microsoft Docs article, and I remember I also blogged about it a couple of months ago, or a few months ago, how do you can set up the virtual entities and how this is another step closer to the finance, to the Power Platform or Dataverse. So finance and operations data is getting closer and closer towards Dataverse here. So a couple of things here. You just go to your environment settings here, and you go to the virtual entities here. If I'll just show you what I'm trying to explain here, go to the advanced settings. Under the advanced settings, you have your administration, you have your virtual entity data sources. One of the data source for this virtual entity is finance and operations. Where it is coming from, once you install the virtual entity solution, it will start appearing automatically here. So this is the part of the solution which you have to install into your Dataverse environment. There are so many other data sources as you can see, but we are talking about only one data source, finance and operations. Once you click onto this finance and operations, this screen pops up and you have to define the URL of the finance and operations environment. And it does require the application ID and the secret key for the authentication, which you have to go back to your finance and operations environment under Azure Active Directory application. You have to add this application here. You have to add a user here, and this user should not be an admin user. You just have to add out of the box roles here, which is the Dataverse virtual entity, anonymous authenticator, and the integration app. So again, no need to add an admin user to this particular role here. It's not required. So this is the application ID. You copy the same application ID, you copy the same application ID here, define the secret key here to make a connection or authenticate the application. And this is the solution name, which actually comes as a managed solution from Microsoft side. And this solution prefix is actually MSERP, where this is going to use now. Now, after we have configured this one, there is no rocket science in configuring this one there. Now you have to go to your table browser here. Actually, I'm still using the classic mode. You can always go back to your this Power Platform mode here. You can go to the data, go to the tables here, and you can perform whatever the task I'm performing from using the advanced find here. I still find a little bit easier for me to go back to this path. So coming back to the actual process here, you have to go to the advanced find and find out available finance and operations entities here. Just run curate. It will give you the complete list of all the public data entities from finance operations right into your Dataverse here. So that's always take a little bit more time for the first time. So while it's happening here, you choose whatever the data entity. Again, what I have found, if you want to do the same task for 10 or 15 data entities, this is a tedious process. So I'm not sure what Microsoft is planning to make it more robust here, how we can do or make this one multiple selections here and perform the task which I'm going to do now. Let's say you select SCM application entity, click on it. So you have to make it visible. Visible means like it's visible for finance and operations now, so that once we will create the data from finance and operations, you can query data right into this data entity here. Make it visible, save. So while it's happening, I have already done one of the other data entity here, which is worker. So worker is actually called SCM entity. If I'm not mistaken, it's called SCM worker entity. So the SCM worker entity is called a worker here in Dataverse. And this is a suffix here, which is called MSERP. So this is MSERP. It's the same concept which I was showing you over your finance and operations. That's MSERP. So all the tables which are virtual tables in Dataverse from Microsoft Finance and Operations, these are suffixed as MSERP. Again, that's my own idea. It's very hard to find out what are the tables here, how you can go back to the advanced find here, and you have to find out where is the MSERP. There could be a better way. If you are a Power Platform expert, you know more better than me how you can do a better search into Power Platform. Microsoft has recently uh, performed or provided a better way of searching the tables in Dataverse. I haven't explored it yet myself, but in a classic scenario, you just have to go by one, and as you can see, areas of responsibilities is actually tagged as MSERP. uh, area of ERP. So sometimes it's a very tedious task to find out where is it going, how to find out the suffix here. This is you just result on it and you get the data. And now when you result it, it's actually reading the data directly from finance and operations. So this data doesn't reside within Dataverse. It's actually getting a query from finance and operations. Now, in comparison to dual writes, virtual entities are slow because it actually go back to the finance and operations, query the data from here. So it's a two call, go back there and retrieve the data. Now, how you can enhance the performance? Since the source is finance and operations, if the data is getting slow, the culprit is finance and operations. So you have to go back to your finance and operations, check the query result. It's all already optimized there. All the indexes, the correct indexes are in place. If it's all good there, it's a standard product. Again, if it's taking so much time for you to retrieve the data, see, your Power Platform and your finance and operations data centers are into the same. Sorry, someone mute. Perfect, thank you. So make sure your both applications are deployed into the one data center here. So that could be another option. You can check it out. If you have already explored all your options, better to raise a support ticket with Microsoft, and there will be a better options they can actually provide you. What would be the reason? Because they have more control behind the scene, providing you. You have to provide your application ID. You have to provide your data entity and name mappings there. They can actually find out what could be the root cause of that slowness there. Once you have this data here, now you have your data in Power Platform, you have your data in Dataverse. Dataverse, on top of that one, you can create Power BI, portals, Power Apps, even AI. You can do whatever you want to. One of the limitations which I wanted to highlight when Amna was talking about the limitations of the dual write doesn't work with a cross-company data sharing. What does it mean is a cross-company data sharing? Cross-company data sharing is the finance and operations concept. Right into the finance and operations, we have a cross-company data sharing. How does it work? If I will go back to finance and operations here, we have a configure cross-company data sharing. Right now, this is a demo environment. We haven't configured any policies here. You have a vendor into legal entity USMF. You want to use the same vendor into USSI, having the same vendor sharing between different legal entities. So you actually share the same data across multiple legal entities. Dual write doesn't support these cross-company data sharing. It will not work for your dual write. There are different tricks you can perform, which I personally did, and get it working with a cross-company data sharing. You can actually add some filters onto your table mappings there, right into the data management, go to the dual right here and choose your vendors here. You can actually define some sort of filters. You can actually provide, you can all the end of the day, these are data entities within finance and operations. You can go into the data entity in finance and operations. You can extend your business logic there to allow it to adding a few fields or flags to get it working for the cross-company data sharing. But again, this is the customization which you have to perform in finance and operations, because the cross-company data is a financial operations concept. So you have to customize your process there. But down the line, if you stuck somewhere, if and you raise a support ticket, Microsoft will ask you, do you have a cross-company data sharing enabled? And you say, yes, we do. The next answer you will get, okay, Microsoft doesn't support dual write with a cross-company data sharing. So you go back, take off the cross-company data sharing. If you have any customizations there, remove all those customizations, then come back to us, then we will talk to you. That's not an ideal situation. So sometimes all the support raise tickets, these are not going to work for you. So you have to keep all these points into your mind. This is actually I'm sharing based on to my experience. So if you are raising a support ticket with Microsoft, so play intelligently there, explain them if you have enabled the cross-company data sharing, what you have done, what you have changed into the business processes, and how do you think it's working for them, if for the dual right. And if it's not working, maybe down the line, 80 or 90% down the line, it's not working for one or two scenarios, then definitely, this is where Microsoft helped me. They will definitely engage one of the support engineer or if required, they actually get into a call right from the product team from dual right. They will get into a call which you understand your business process and they will help you out. Last point, based on to my experience, I wanted to share is if you have dual right or is a transactional. When I say transactional, this is not the financial transactional data. It's actually a TTS begin and TTS commit. It's a database transaction. You initiated a one request from finance and operations until and unless it completed, finished its process in customer engagement, the transaction is not completed. Now, down the line, what would happen if you, down the line, what would happen if anything went wrong there and the record is not created into customer engagement? Now, you can definitely add some sort of filtering there. You can add some sort of an integration status there, where you can say, okay, if I want to have this record created maybe later in the day, you can add an integration status. For all these discussions, all those points I have actually explained in a very detail on my blog. I can share that link shortly. You can go through that all the sequence of blogs which I've written on to all dual write processes there. Any question, please feel free to reach out to me and Rachit at any time. And we are here to support you, get and learn from you at the same time. There are so many business processes which we haven't explored as of now. So it would be a learning curve for us also to get all your business scenarios and case studies and understand how it's going to work. And I just have seen Sunil Garg is also on a call, and that's also a very inspirational person for me. He helped me a lot when I started when I got stuck with dual light maybe 2.5 years ago. It wasn't generally available. So that's how Microsoft is actually on our back. If we are getting stuck, they are here. They are there to support us. That's all about dual write, all about virtual entities. I will quickly talk about the key takeaways, Amna, and then we can go to the questions with the conscious of time here. The key takeaways Financial operations and Dataverse must be under the same tenant. It only supports one-on-one link. You cannot do this. You have financial operations in one side and you have two Dataverse instances on the other side. No, that's not a possibility. Only one-to-one. Dual write, uh, plan for testing for dual write and data migration. This is one of the hottest questions I ever asked. How dual write works with the data migration. Microsoft has actually provided a complete a docs article. If you have a 50,000 records, you perform this step. If you have more than 50,000 records in either side of the application, customer engagement, finance and operations, what you need to do, stop your dual write job there. Import your data into customer engagement separately. Import your data into financial operations separately. No need to do the initial thing. Just run the job now. No need to initial thing. But again, many a times, sorry, I wouldn't say many a times since Sunil is also here. Sometimes it doesn't work because you have your custom processes. You have some processes which uh, you upload the data into customer engagement, then you have to have some business processes or triggers or actions which would you need to perform those from customer engagement so that it updates the data right into the finance operations. So sometimes it doesn't work. But again, if it doesn't work, then you have to do your process to Microsoft in a proper way. Okay, this is my process here. I have 1 million records, but for every 1 million records, I want to perform data migration from FNO to CE using dual write. In my opinion, dual write again is not a data migration tool. Microsoft has mentioned clearly onto their doc site, dual write is not a data migration. If you have that huge volume of data, you have to perform different actions there. Logic app is also there. So Microsoft will ask you, okay, go with the data integrator there. So data integrator, dual write, they work side by side with no issues. Number sequence, financial operations and Dataverse, they don't share number sequence. Uh, Consider pausing. This is another powerful feature in dual write. If you want to perform some high level data bulk operations in financial operations, let's say your purchase order are syncing from financial operations to customer engagement or Dataverse, it's running. But now you have your open purchase orders. You are going live, or you are going as a phase two of your go live implementation. You are going live. You got so many other purchase orders which you want to import into finance and operations. Make sure you pause your data in that dual write job. Otherwise, if it's gonna take you 1 hour to import the 50,000 purchase order back into finance and operations, if you will not stop your table map for purchase order in dual write, it's gonna take you more than a day. Then you will raise a support ticket to Microsoft, say, okay, it's not working for me. Your solution is not working for me. But see, you have to think about what actions you have performed first. You have to stop your table map. You have to pause it and then upload all the purchase order into finance and operations. Then resume the process. What would happen with the resume? All the purchase orders will copy from financial operations to customer engagement. Low code, no code principle. To some extent, it's very hard for me to understand how is it low code, no code principle, but it is there because uh, we still need a lot of information to understand low code, no code. So it does support online and offline modes. How does it work with the offline modes? So there is a docs article also which actually explains you how does it work with the offline mode. So in a quick summary, I have already explained all my points in a summary. So I would say, then I think so. We are going to share this presentation once we finish the whole series. What we are planning, we are going to uh, upload all the PDF version of our presentations to one of the repository. So anyone can go there, check the links from there. If you want to read, you want to present the whole presentation somewhere, you can do it at any time. So next section is all about Priyanka Garg from PwC, very talented girl. I have I had actually Priyanka for one of the sessions for Pakistan user group, uh, and we got none other than Mustajab from Systems and Priyanka from PwC. So Mustajab will be talking about the logic app. Priyanka will be talking about the data integrator, and then we will have our lovely Rachit to end the whole series, and we will say thank you for everyone for joining us today and for the whole series. Now, I'll just go into the questions quickly. There are so many questions here, uh, as expected. All right. Uh, Ajay, when we say near real time, how much delay we can expect the data to flow? Is there any setting to say 15, 30 minutes? There is no settings. It actually takes around hardly few seconds, but it's hard to say the time limits because it really depends on to your if you're talking about the customer groups. So it's a one table in finance and operations. So think about customers itself. It underline it has more than 10 to 15 tables in here, and one of the heaviest table of the customers is the contacts and the addresses. So you can think of maybe the delay would be few seconds, not the real time. That's my understanding. If I understand you correctly, then the data from FNO gets copied 2x, maybe two times. First into the CE and second into the data lake, depending on to the course onto the specific setup and configuration made for the project. Is that right? Data lake. Data lake is a separate thing. So Dr. Ludwig, because we have a data lake from finance and operation perspective, which is not generally available yet, and we are not sure. I was talking to Rajit last week, and we are still trying to find out when we are going to explore more about the data lake. But once we have those data lakes available as export to data lake options available from finance and operations, we don't need any CE or Dataverse for that purpose. We just need a Power Platform integrated environment. We don't need any app there. But for the CE, currently into CE we use Data Export Service (DES). But uh, don't quote me on that one. But that's going to be uh, obsoleted, maybe when, but that's going to be replaced by Azure Synapse. So from both sides, we will have the data using different technologies and then going data right to Rachit, which is Azure for me. So I'm just giving an examples what we are here. Like I'm a finance operation person. Rachit is actually sitting in a cloud somewhere and getting all the data from me and Amna. So then we have Ajay. My take on this question is that it depends on the multiple factors. Like, okay, so Rachit have explained. Thank you, Rachit. Uh, do you know any scenario that works for dual and not work for data entities? Yes. Uh, if you want to have your data replicated for a valid reason into the for any application, then virtual entities are not going to work for you. And virtual entities, uh, there are few limitations into the virtual entities. Uh, I'm not a, a very experienced into that uh, data flows or performing some business logic and writing some JavaScript into customer engagement or data work. But this is where virtual entities may not work properly because you do not have the actual data residing within the customer engagement. You may have to tweak something. Maybe you need to write a plugin there. But if Amna, if you want to add something over here.
Yeah, in this scenario, plugins and more of Azure storage bus can be very helpful.
Perfect. So Rajit again have explained limitations. And guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself, and we are happy to take questions directly also. So Ajay, uh, also because if I don't know how much time exactly do you write, so dual write takes time to reflect the data into the destination from a source. It will be very difficult when to look at the destination system for the addition, changes, and deletion. For me, it doesn't take a lot of time. We need to think if you haven't implemented anything else other than the dual ad implementation, it's pretty quick in my experience. You just can get a record from FNO and just go back to CE. If you don't see it right away, just refresh your screen. When I worked on the dual write last time with a small data, then it works fine. But it didn't work with millions of records. So no, mate, millions of records like you're talking about the initial thing. Very important point to understand here, and I blogged about it again. Initial sync is not the dual write part. Initial sync is the data integrator. When you do the initial sync, it actually triggers the data integrator because the data integrator is a scheduled process. In an initial sync, you cannot put any filter for a legal entity. If you want to only copy the data from one application from FO to CE for only one of the legal entities and you want to perform the initial sync, your legal entity filter will not work there. That is by design. And Jeff Anderson has explained very well onto one of the Jammer groups posts. This is by design because if you want to copy only one legal entity, it will break the integrity between the CE and financial operations data. So that is by design. Millions of records, all good. I think dual write is synchronous and bidirectional, while virtual entity is not. Uh, Virtual entity is bidirectional. The virtual entities does work is applicable for CRUD operations. When I say bidirectional means your source data is finance and operation. You can see data right into your dataverse, but you can perform all the actions there. But the source will remain into the finance and operations. You created a one customer account in finance and operations. You have that data into Dataverse. Now you want to change any address, you want to change any customer group here and there in using the virtual entities, it will work. So it does support all the CRUD operations using the virtual entities. Uh, Mr. Sunil Gaur, virtual entities would not be looked upon as a data sync tool. Yes, absolutely. Uh, Thank you, Sunil. Uh, can we set up something like which one to execute first, second, third? This is where we actually demonstrate for initial sync. When you say first, second, third, this is for the initial sync, not for the live data. Because for the live sync, whenever, let's say you are creating a new customer account in finance and operations, the prerequisite for the customer account is customer group, terms of payment, currencies. If you haven't set up those ones first, you have to go back manually and set those up first, customer group, terms of payment, and currencies. In order to perform all those actions, you have to go to the customer group, create customer group first. The moment you will create the customer group and the table map is running, it will automatically create the customer group into the CE. Now you coming back to the customer account here. You try to create a customer, it failed. No, you have to provide the proper currency. Now go back to the financial notation, set up the proper currency. The moment you set up the proper currency, if the table dual right table map is running, it will automatically copy the same currency into the CE. So this is a sequence automatically. You are defining a sequence as per your business test cases. Now, if we coming back to the initial thing, remember when we run the initial thing, and there it actually shows you which is the dependent on this particular process. The customer's V3, the dependence is customer group, terms of payments, this and this. You cannot define the same sequence which you define into the data export project. If you are trying to compare, if you define the sequences, exporting the data using the data management project and defining the sequence there, no, dual write doesn't work like this one. It actually a transactional database. It will try to copy. Okay, you are copying the customers first, and it will run the customer, and then onto the sequence, it will see customer groups there, terms of payments there. You might hit a problem at that point. A record comes and say, I'm copying 100 record of the customers, and it actually referring to one of the customer groups which haven't finished yet. Then that record gets failed. So it's better you copy the master data, configuration data first, and then copy your actual accounts data, which is your documents, purchase orders also. Okay. Any scenario where your dual write is up and running, you want to update, yeah, I would say pause it, perform your action, come back and resume it. I mean, in our demo session on the dual write some time back, pre-requisite data like customer groups. So I think so. I have explained this one already. If some data is not synced, we can see error details. Can we re-trigger the failed records once the underlying error? I think so. If I'm not mistaken, not now, but I heard somewhere Microsoft is working on some of the similar type of functionalities where you can go back and run only for the failed ones. But again, I have to double check, but not now. Does this mean we cannot use dual write for sync integration? You can. Dual write is a data sync platform which it has two aspects: initial sync, which is your asynchronous process. Then you have your synchronization process, which is a live data. So dual write is a synchronous process. Thank you, Sunil. Again,
sorry to interrupt you, Ajay here. Just for the while you're answering the previous one where it is failed, right? Like as of now, we don't have any option to re-trigger. So in that case, say for example, if there are 200 or like say 30 records got failed, and if you don't have an option to re-trigger them, like how we are currently handling that kind of scenario now?
So what, because you have to do the initial sync regardless. If let's say you have 100 records, 30 got failed, 70 got passed, you go back to the initial sync. Initial sync will always go with the again 100. It will try to run for the 100 records here. There is a way is you can define a filter into the initial sync. You can say, okay, and this is again a little bit of a logic here. You can add a one column if you are a developer. Let's say for now, if you are a developer or if you have access to a developer, say whatever the got failed, you may add a one checkbox there if these got failed in your business processes. But again, this is again a very tedious task. It's very hard to download the logs from the dual write. How many got failed? There is no easy way because it gives you an error message for one each and every record here, and there is no way to download that log. and then you export it and then filter it, how many got passed, how many got failed, and then you can define. So with the initial thing, it will run again for the 100 records.
Because if in the down line, like say after 1 year or so, if a sync got failed for 30 records, I cannot sync again initial sync, right? If you sync that initial sync, then like it will take too much of time, maybe say 1 day or something, I don't know. But
Yes, yes, that's a valid scenario. Absolutely, that's a valid scenario. And as of now, the only option is to do the initial thing to run the whole process again.
Again.
okay.
Are there any limitations or things you have to look out for pitfalls when implementing virtual entities and dual write for multiple legal entities in FNO? No, for no, I don't see any limitations in implementing for multiple legal entities in FNO because you have that process in dual write environment details. You go to there and actually, if I will try to show you here, so in dual write, you go to the environment details, you have the list of all multiple legal entities here. So it does work for all the multiple legal entities. And for the virtual entities also, it does work.
I think in case of virtual entity, you can specify a particular legal entity when you call the URL.
Yes, yes. So that's actually a similar concept which we use for OData call. So
Yeah.
whenever we want to make a call from FNO using the OData, we specify if you want to make a cross company check over there, cross company equal to true. So then it will get data from cross companies, all the legal entities. Otherwise, it will, if you do not have any default legal entity set up for your particular user, it will always go and get the data from that DAT, which is always a default company for you. But if you have a legal entity specific for your particular user, which is USMF, then it will automatically try to get data from there. Are dual write and the virtual entities working across tenants? No. Dual write, no. It doesn't work in this scenario. Thank you so much, Rachit. If you have to restore the FNO database where dual write is enabled, then what are the key recommendations? Do we need to pause the dual write and run the maps again? Yes. Again, if I will try to copy my blog over here, so there are proper guidelines which actually I got from one of the product engineer from Microsoft. I'll paste it here, a link of my blog, and it has written the steps here. But in a nutshell, yes, you have to stop the pause mappings first. It's a good idea to stop it, and then you have to unlink the environment, restore the databases in both the environments, CE, Dataverse, and FNO, both. Once you restore it, make sure go back to your CDS database. There are two tables there. One is called dual write project field configuration, and one is called dual write project configuration. Two tables in FNO. Make sure these are already blank, clear. It's just a double check there. And there is one table in Dataverse. I have written the name of that table into my blog. You just go back to the advanced find into customer engagement and make sure that table is already clear. What are those tables? These are the tables whenever you run any table mappings there. So each and everything, all the mappings get stored into those tables. So the moment you stop, it's gone away. The moment you start run, if it's running, so it will come back here. It will actually come back to your actually dual write project field and dual write project configuration. These are two tables here. So session number 2. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Any other questions, guys? I think we
Thank
have gone over time. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Thanks for being patient and answering all the questions. If there are any questions left unanswered, I've shared my email address, so guys, please send me an email. I saw one question, Faisal, if you can give your views on that. There was a question from, I think, Torsten, that can we change the dual write link for an environment? So if we have a link with
Now,
one database.
very good question. No, no.
Okay.
This is uh, this is one of the drawbacks. And one of the customer engagement guy got very angry how Microsoft has implemented this. How can they do this? Microsoft actually, link the environments, so they store the URL of the finance and operations environment. So it actually gets stored the URL. So there is no environment type of anything, the environment ID. So, and you cannot change the URL of the finance and operations environment. You can change the URL of the customer engagement environment. Yes, you can. You can rename the customer engagement environment. You can change the URL of the customer engagement environment. But when it comes to finance and operations, where we have the dual right project configuration table, in
Yeah.
one of the tables, there is a called environment URL field. So in that URL, environment URL, it actually stores the URL of the customer engagement environment. So if you change the URL for the customer engagement, you are in trouble. So don't try this one.
All right. Thanks for that, Faisal and Amna. Really appreciate you guys taking your time out and sharing this knowledge and answering all the questions. I would just like to add, like I do also hear a lot of customers or architects complaining that Microsoft should do this and that. But I actually want to thank Microsoft for supporting all the community and the economy and the customers. I know they are working so hard and they are always there to answer all the questions. So I would like to actually say thanks to Microsoft for building this platform, building these technologies, always listening to customers and trying to improve them by taking a continuous feedback and giving, and connecting with the community. I really like to thank all the Microsoft product group engineers, fast track solution architects, the way they are engaging with communities, really helping us to solve customers' problem. And I just want to say big thanks to them. Cool.
Absolutely.
All right. So yeah, I think again I would like to thanks Amna and Faisal for this. So if you have any last words, Faisal and Amna, you can say to our audience. And if someone from the audience wants to unmute and say something, feel free to do that.
No, I would like to say thank you to everyone who has joined us today, and thank you for all the great questions. We wanted to make the session more interactive, which we have done. That is really great. I and Amna, we actually planned in a way we didn't want to make this as a classic session, as we have been doing throughout the whole series. So thank you so much, Rasmit, for taking this initiative and involving all the different user groups from the other part of the world. So that's really good. Uh, Doing really great job, mate. Good luck. And thank you everyone for joining us today.
All right then. Thanks everyone. Have a
Thank
great
you.
weekend. And
Thank you, guys.
we have the last session next weekend.
Thank you.
So please join us for that.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Thanks, Amna. Thanks.
Bye.
Faisal.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.